Hello, everyone. Thank you, Arina. All right, so let's get started. I'm going to give you today an introduction on how to use PrepTab and how PrepTab will help you to manage samples on BaseSpace. So let me give you the scope of the webinar. This is mainly intended for NextSeq 500 users who use manual prep method. PrepTab can also be used to set up samples on NeoPrep. This is beyond the scope of this talk. NeoPrep is our automated sample preparation system. So this is mainly for people who are NextSeq 500 users, okay, who are doing manual preparation. So I'm going to give you the basic PrepTab functionalities, such as the biological samples, libraries, pools, and planned runs. I'll also tell you how to upload the custom library prep kit correctly, and we'll have a question and answer session later on. So how is PrepTab going to be integrated into your workflow? So PrepTab is designed as a sample management system for planning before you actually start the experiment. So you get to upload your samples on BaseSpace, on PrepTab, create libraries according to the design that you want, and then go to the web lab using this design of your library preparation, and then make your libraries in the lab physically. And then start your run on the sequencer on the NextSeq 500, thereby connecting to BaseSpace, and data gets uploaded to BaseSpace from the instrument, and it gets demultiplexed to generate FASTQs on BaseSpace. So this is a complete cloud-based solution, beginning from uploading samples on PrepTab to demultiplexing to generate data on BaseSpace. So PrepTab consists of 4 components. The biological sample, to begin with, is nothing but just your raw DNA or your RNA sample. It can be DNA from brain tissue, water sample, RNA from microbial culture, anything, you name it. From biological samples, you get to prepare your libraries. Libraries are nothing but your biological sample with the adapter added, such that a unique barcode is assigned to each of your samples. So once libraries are constructed, you can pool them or mix them together. A pool consists of a mixture of libraries of similar type that's ready to be sequenced. And then you can send the run to the sequencer to sequence it. So let's look at biological samples in a little bit more detail. So from the biological samples, you can get to create unique biological samples, or you can import them from a CSV file. So let's try creating one biological sample. So you go ahead, say create, and then this takes you to another page where you get to enter your sample ID, sample name, species, project, and the nucleic acid, whether it's DNA or RNA. So I just created a sample ID with that name and a sample name. And it immediately throws up an error saying that the sample ID and the name should only contain alphanumeric, dashes, or underscores. So this is really important. You cannot enter any other characters here, okay? And we also prefer that you keep the sample ID short, such that just to avoid long, names in the FASTQ files. Species need to be selected from within the list. So we have a bunch of species here that we have on BaseSpace. At this point, there is no possibility to upload custom genome uploads. You have to select one from the list. The project name at this point is optional, but you have to enter it before you start the run. And again, I have to iterate here that the project name should also contain just alphanumeric characters. Avoid spaces and underscores, dashes, and other illegal characters. The nucleic acid can be DNA or RNA, but for a given run, you need to have everything as DNA or an RNA sample only. At this point, we don't have an option to delete an existing biological sample, but we've made this as a feature request, and it should be coming. So we understand that creating a sample one by one is too cumbersome, so you have an option to import biological samples using a CSV file. So if you click on Import Biological Samples, it takes you to a page where you can download a template. The template looks like this. It is a CSV file, a comma-separated file. It has the exact 4 fields as you just saw before: sample ID, name, species, project, and nucleic acid. So make sure that the format is correct. So if you edit this file in Excel, make sure you save it as a CSV file only. And sample IDs and sample name has to be unique. So here is just a summary slide for you, just to take it back about the features involved in the biological samples. So moving on, you can get to prepare libraries either from biological samples, or you can import libraries using a CSV file. Let's first start by creating a library from biological samples. So you go to biological samples, you click on whatever number of samples that you want, that you need to prep as a library. You can hold the Shift button and select multiple samples, and then you can go and say Prep Libraries, which will take you to a page, the Libraries page. First, you get to pick your library prep kit, okay? So we have a given number of library prep kits on BaseSpace. These are all Illumina supported kits. You also have an option to upload your own custom library prep kit if you're not using one of our kits. And we'll talk about how to upload a custom library prep kit in detail later on in this talk. So this is a dual index plate format. So depending on what library prep kit you choose, the plate format will be different. Here is a single index plate format if you choose a single index type, okay? In a dual index, you have a 96 well type, 12 by 8 type format, whereas a single index is each well contains its own index sequence. So once you pick your library prep kit, you get to assign index sequences to your library, your sample, okay? So you can either click on your sample ID and drag drop into the well, or you can click the auto prep button, which helps you to assign indexes automatically to all the biological samples that you've listed. So again, I need to remind you here that Prep tab is designed as a sample management system. So using this auto prep button, you get to assign indexes automatically to 96 samples, and you get to take this format to the wet lab to prepare your libraries. So you can use the export button here to export the schema, so it can help you to prepare libraries in your wet lab. Then you give it a plate ID. The plate ID has to be unique. Once you give a plate ID, you can now get to pool libraries. So let's talk about how you'd import libraries using a CSV file. So if you go to your libraries section, there is an import button which takes you to a template, the page where you can upload the CSV file, and there is a template here to upload. So there are some key components here that one needs to pay attention to. The library prep kit is the name of the the library prep kit that you have chosen or that you want to use. The name in this column must match exactly to what is already there on BaseSpace. So it has to be an exact match. So for example, TrueSeq LT should be TrueSeq LT, not TrueSeq space LT. And if there is even a small discrepancy like that, it will throw out an error. The container type following that is just always a plate 96, regardless of what index format you're uploading. Container ID is your unique plate ID. So this is a format that I have for you for a single index template. A single index library can only import 12 samples at a time. That's just a given constraint at this point. So the 12 samples that have to be imported have to be in this format where you import the 12 samples in a given row. So wells A01 to A12 needs to be uploaded first, one at a time. Then the index name and the index sequence must match exactly the library prep kit that you have chosen. This is a format for a dual index library prep template, and you can upload 96 samples at a time. So you give a sample name, sample ID, the library prep kit, the index names, sequences, they all have to match exactly with the library prep kit that you have chosen. So again, here is a summary for you for the library section. You can either select biological samples and create libraries from there, or you can import libraries using a CSV file. The import at this point is restricted to 12 samples at a time for a single index and 96 at a time for dual index. The index names and the sequences must match the library prep kit. Okay, so let's move on and pool libraries. So once you create your libraries, they will appear in the libraries section. So you can select up to 5 plates to pool. Keep in mind that the libraries in the plates have to be unique when you create a pool. So once you select your plates that you want to pool, you click on Pool Libraries. You cannot pool different sized indexes, and they should be all of the same library type, and the index sequences must be unique in a given pool. So this takes you to the Pools page, where you can drag drop a single library into a pool, and you can also hold down the Shift button to select multiple samples or multiple libraries at a time. There is a drop down right here where you can select different plates that you have selected that you want to pool for this pool. So once you created the pool, you name the pool and then click on Planned Run. Planned Run is nothing but the run that you want to sequence on your sequencer. So you can go to your pools, click on the pool ID that you want to sequence and say Planned Runs. So there are some important information that you need to fill out here for this run to appear on your NextSeq 500 sequencer. The name of the run, you want to give a unique name. You want to leave the reagent barcode field blank. The reason is because if you enter a reagent cartridge number, this cartridge number needs to match exactly with the cartridge that you are using on your NextSeq 500 sequencer. Let's say you put in a different cartridge on the sequencer, the planned run will not show up on your sequencing instrument. So you want to leave this one blank. You enter the number of cycles that you want to sequence, read 1, read 2, number of cycles. Then you review indexing scheme. Here you have the option of selecting no index if you want to run without any index, or a dual index library prep kit can be converted into a single index. Okay? But you don't have the option of editing the number of cycles for the index cycles. So that's locked in. So depending on what prep kit you choose, the index cycles are actually locked in. So again, the summary slide, you can pool up to 5 plates, and you can override index scheme by using a no index. And this is very useful if you want to do a 5x only run for validation purposes that we recommend at many times. You can convert a dual index to a single index type at this point. Okay, so now let's move on and talk a little bit about how to generate the custom library prep kit. So we have a number of Illumina supported kits on the prep tab. And if you can't find your kit, let's say you're using TruSeq DNA Nano, TruSeq DNA PCR-free, it would just be that you would select TruSeq LT or TruSeq HD depending on the case, okay? So, and let's say you're not using one of our Illumina supported kits, then you have the option of creating a custom library prep kit. So once you click on that, it takes you to a page where you get to first design the kit. So you want to name your kit. Keep the name short and simple, because if you are going to use the same name in the import libraries section, you don't want to give a super long name, okay? The supported read types, you want to keep this broad. If you want to do a single read, you can click just single read, or you can just click both. That way you can reuse the same prep kit multiple times. So you want to keep it broad. So depending on what read type you choose, you get to choose your adapter sequence. So just merely giving an adapter sequence you're actually turning on adapter trimming for your generate FASTQ workflow, okay? So if you don't give any adapter sequence, you don't have any adapter trimming going on. For a single read, you want to put in the adapter sequence in a key, comma, value format. So adapter sequence read 1, comma, the sequence. If you use a paired end, it's expecting that you will give adapter sequences for read 1 and read 2. So even if it's the same sequence, you need to repeat it twice. Adapter sequence read 1, sequence, adapter sequence read 2, comma, sequence. So the supporting indexing strategies here, again, you have the option of selecting, any one of the 3 or, none also. So for example, if you want to do a dual index kit, you can select single and none. But if you want to upload a single index kit, you can't click dual index, obviously, because that's going to throw an error. The none just allows you to use this kit to also sequence without an index sequencing. Then there is an option to put in the default read cycles, but you don't want to do it here because you don't want to lock it in. You want to keep it broad, so you can put the number of read cycles in the planned run stage. Okay? So once you enter all the basic information, you can import the index, custom index prep kit template, which there's a hyperlink right here. And the one that you import is actually a dual index template. There is a bulletin. There's a very excellent resource here that I want to point out, which tells you in detail how to create this custom library prep kit, which has the template for both the single and the dual index template. So let me go over each of the sections in the custom library prep kit in detail. So the first, it starts with version. It's by default version 1. Settings. This setting allows you to give the adapter sequence for trimming. Again, for single read and paired end, the format is slightly different. You want to have 2 lines for paired end and 1 line for single read. Then there is a list of index 1 sequence, index 2 sequence that you need to provide. So if it's a single index kit, you only have index 1 sequences. If you have dual index, you would have both index 1 and index 2. And they are in the name, comma, sequence format. Again, you want to keep the name short. The name has to be only 8 characters long. You cannot give big names, and followed by a sequence. Okay. Here, I just have screenshots of the Excel spreadsheet, dual and single on either side. So you see that for dual, we only support a 12 by 8 format. So you have 12 index 1 sequences, and then you have 8 index 2 sequences in the next section. Whereas for single index on the next section, you can have any number of index sequences. So I've seen people use 96 index sequences. As long as the number is divisible by 96, that number is allowed. You can have up to 96 unique index sequences. Yeah, you just have to make sure that the sequence itself is unique. Then there are 3 other sections. Default layout by well tells you how to assign each index to each of the wells. So you want to repeat your index names over and over again such that the entire 96 well is covered. For example, in the dual index, let's say you have 12 index sequences. You want to repeat this over and over again until from A01 to H12, such that all the 96 wells are filled. Same goes for the single index as well. How many ever index sequences you have, you just want to fill it up completely. Then so this is just a format to show you, how a single index will look like when you fill this over and over again. So you start with A01, you end with B12, and again the same sequence gets repeated, C01, and so on and so forth. Then there are 2 other sections that you need to fill out, the default layout by column and default layout by row. The row is only for dual index. If you want to do a 96 12 by 8 type format, whereas the default layout by column needs to be filled out for both single and dual index. Let me show you how this looks. So the default layout by column is the number of columns, number of index sequences you have. So for dual index, if you have 12 indexes, the number of columns is equal to 12. For single index, if you have 24 indexes, the number of columns is equal to 24, sorry. So if you have 96 index sequences, the number of columns would be 96, okay? There is no default layout by row section for the single index, and this is only so that the 12 by 8 format is kept. So after you create your template, you save it as a CSV file, and you use the Choose CSV File button to upload the CSV file onto PrepTab. Okay, so again, there's a summary slide for you. The template has to be a CSV file. You can keep the library prep kit template broad. We have supporting indexing strategies which are none, single, or dual. You can again leave the index, the read cycles. You don't have to enter it at this point. So you want to fill out the template information carefully. The criteria is very, very strict for upload to work. And every single well should be accounted for in the template, in the 96 well plate. The index 1 and index 2 should be of equal length. And we'll talk more about reverse complementing. And the adapter sequences that are specified in settings have to be only 20 characters. Here are some excellent resources for you. There's a help.basespace.illumina.com, which also describes PrepTab in detail. There's a very nice bulletin which tells you how to create the custom library prep kit. There are a couple of training video links that I've